This is Preston Glass, and you're listening to the Break It Down Show.
And now, the Break It Down Show with John and Pete.
Yes, you are. You're listening to the Break It Down Show, by the way, coming at you from the lovely Windsor Hills abode and home studio, actually, in the back. The hang of the, I'm going to embarrass you, the great Preston Glass.
Oh, wow. That's an honor. Here's your $25.
Yeah.
For that plug.
And within a short view, I can see a picture of you and Quincy Jones, you and Madonna, and you and Randy Jackson.
You and everybody. So this place is packed in, too. There's vinyl, there are CDs, there are cassettes, and endless, nonstop cassettes and DAT tapes. And so
Platinum records.
This is a creative space. Last time we had you on, we did it from right here, and we're no longer quite as starstruck looking at all this memorabilia that you have hanging around here. This time, we're here to talk to you. Let's face it, we're here to talk to you because we're in the neighborhood, so we just stopped in.
All right.
But you just released a CD.
Yes. About a month ago, I released my 6th solo CD entitled The Stuff That Matters.
Yeah. You look like you forgot the name of the CD for a second there.
Yeah, I was just reminiscing. I said, 6 CD? I know people out there are probably like, I didn't know you had one. Well, these solo CDs are more of a labor of love for me. I mean, I call myself a songwriter at heart and primarily a producer.
Right.
So when I do these artist things, it's more of a release to use some tunes that may not work for other artists I produce. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is, as you listen to the CD, you have, it seems like a cohesive thread throughout the CD, and that a lot of the material there is, for me and probably for Pete and myself, probably just because we know you, we hear the song and we immediately go, you know who should do this song?
Yeah.
And then we play that game, which is just to see if there is a match out there. Like, who would Preston match this piece of work up with? And the funny thing is we listened to it. Last time I was here, I called you our generation's master of the lush ballad. And there are ballads on the CD, and they're great, but I like the up-tempo stuff on this CD.
Thank you. Yeah, I tried to put a little more emphasis on mid-tempo and up-tempo things on this. And even on my last few CDs, you'll notice that the ratio is maybe like 4-to-1 up-tempo.
Yeah.
Because people out in the industry usually hire me for the more of the ballad stuff. So this is a chance to let off steam, so to speak, and say, no, I can do the up stuff.
I was going to ask you, like, it's a passion project. It's talking to your artistic sensibilities, letting you get some things out, but it also seems like a marketing tool. Something to say,
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
I try and do one every couple years to show I'm still here, still trying to be relevant, still mindful of what you said about an album has a continuity. So I try to tell stories that once you listen from cut 1 to the last cut, you feel like you've just seen a movie or experienced a whole thing as opposed to
gone on a nice ride.
Songs. Yeah, those are my favorite albums, the ones have that vibe, like, of course, Marvin Gaye, What's Going On, or Stevie Wonder, Talking Book, or Intervisions, other things like that.
All of Stevie Wonder's albums, I feel.
Yeah, especially in the
like
last, after he started producing himself, he definitely did that. So I'm a fan of that. And while albums maybe are not as popular today, they still sell. And I think the more that people get away from the album thing, the more unique my albums become, and people seem to like it. I purposely go for the, I guess you would call it, movie cinematic kind of vibe. Even if not all the songs are message songs or not all the songs apply to the title, at least it feels like it belongs on that CD.
Well, I think we're going to see a resurgence in the album as a piece of work, because I think that served the shrinking attention span of the listener to go down to the singles where we are now. But I have a 19-year-old son who recently was hanging out at my parents' house and said, "Hey, Grandpa, what are you doing with that record player?" And my dad said, I don't listen to it that much anymore. I got my stuff on my Sonos. And he said, "Can I have it?" And my dad said, yeah, absolutely, you can have it. So then my dad started to put together a little rig for him, gave him a little amp. And he said, look, this is how you want to put this together. And then at the time, my dad didn't even have it plugged in. So he plugged up all the stuff. He had these enormous JVC speakers, or Marantz, big wood
Marantz.
cabinet speakers,
I haven't heard that name.
Yeah. And then he started playing some records, and my son was just blown away at the warmth and depth. And
Vinyl,
he just was, I think it was unexpected for him. So he got really enthused about it. Now it's sitting in his bedroom. And he's got a stack of vinyl that keeps growing. He goes to the thrift store and he's combing through vinyl. And, my son he's got decent taste in music because he's been exposed. But now that I see him as a vinyl shopper, he comes back with an eclectic mix of stuff. I mean, he came back the other night with, a little stack of records. He must have spent maybe $10 at the Goodwill and came back with like 5 records. And I mean, there was a Frank Sinatra album in there that I didn't expect to see. There was a Ray Charles record in there. And then I popped into his room to say goodbye to him when I was leaving one morning last week. Popped in there, and he was listening to Songs in the Key of Life. Yeah. And I said, I know that the cement has dried around what I've exposed him to already. He's 19 years old, so I'm not sure that if I said, hey, listen to this, he would listen to me. But I'm happy to say that he's naturally just getting it. He's understanding that people produced albums for the sake of taking you on a nice journey.
Yeah. It's funny, you mentioned Songs in the Key of Life. I just had a listening party the day before my CD was released at the Vibrato here in Bel Air, which is Herb Alpert's club. Me being a songwriter, you would think that I would feature all my songs and especially stuff off the new CD. Sure. Well, the first song I did was Love's in Need of Love Today.
Oh, wow.
The opening cut of Songs in the Key of Life.
Yeah.
Because that's a song as a songwriter I wish I had written.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it fit the theme of the night and also what's going on in the world today, too. So, even though I'm a songwriter, I'm a big fan of other songwriters, too.
Yeah, that sure is a theme we could use more of today. So tell us about the listening party, man, because we weren't here.
Yeah, it was a night of, I call it passing the torch, which we had some legendary R&B artists like Frida Payne, Evelyn Champagne King, Chubby Tavares of lead singer of the group Tavares, and among some phenomenal new young talent that actually blew people away. In fact, the opening song that we did after the Stevie cut was a cut from my album, but I didn't sing it. I had this duo named Johnny Manuel and Terry Dexter sing it, duet from my album. Later on, somebody in the audience, which had some interest and some funding, said, I want to give these guys a record deal.
Wow.
So guess what my next project is going to be? A duet album with Johnny Manuel and Terry Dexter.
No kidding.
And it's going to be kind of like a Marvin Gaye, Tammy Terrell thing, and these guys can blow. But that was the kind of night it was. It was like the old passing it to the young giving respect to the older. Uh-huh. The whole thing was filmed. Also, something great that's coming out of that night is I'm working on a TV show now called Passing the Torch.
Wow.
Using the footage from that night. Going to do some more little interviews and then take it to network and then see if we can make a series out of it.
That's another thing that the world could use is a duo like Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell.
Yeah. When we get off the air here, I'll play a little bit of that because people were actually, they got a standing ovation. It was kind of mind-blowing. I knew it was good, but people were astounded. But they told me after that they hadn't heard such talent and such young people's singing in years. So,
wow. Yeah. Good songwriting, I feel like, brings qualities out in a young singer because, man, sometimes you see a young singer who's just got incredible pipes, but when you're young, what you have in incredible pipes, you lack in life experience. And sometimes you can't write a song. We caught Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell right at the point where they had all the vocal dexterity and just enough life experience to sing about heartache, to sing about triumph, to sing about love. And
look who they had writing their songs, Ashford and Simpson.
Right.
And the Motown staff. So, Yeah, songs do bring to life vocalists, and vocalists can bring to life songs. I mean, a great example is that very song that I had that duo sing that night. I had somebody listen to it the other day. They said, "Hey, I have your CD. I don't remember that song being on there." They re-listened to it and they said, "Oh, I
there
remember
it is.
it." But it's just a whole nother thing with these guys singing. They can. I didn't take it as as offense because when a great singer sings a decent song, I'm not. I don't consider myself a singer. I'm a songwriter that happens to portray the song. But they loved it the new way. So that's what I hope my CDs will do is some kind of way get exposed to artists that can really blow, or just be a forum to show my songwriting. So.
Well, as a songwriter is like an architect. You draw an amazing piece of work, and then somebody comes up and builds it. And sometimes you can walk up to a lovely structure and go, "Man, look at this beveled glass and the angles on here," and and somebody built it beautifully.
Right.
But it came from an architect who started with a marvelous design.
That's a good point. I have to remember that. I'm going to borrow that if that's okay.
You can take it easy all you want.
The Architect of Love.
That's right. I wonder how many children have been conceived thanks to the work of Preston Glass.
That's funny.
When you have an artist that wants to sing one of your songs, and you get them in here in the booth and they start singing it, at what point is it too late to say, "Man, this may not be the song for you"? Like, you don't have the age and the miles to sing this. Like, I remember singing Luke Wilson, Willie Nelson's son, and he gets his stage time and everything, and he's singing the blues, but he's 18 and privileged. It's like, I just don't believe that you've got the blues, so, and is that even a thing, though? Can someone get here and you're like, how do you take someone who needs
Sometimes that doesn't happen as often with me, but it has happened a lot of times because I try and do a lot of pre-production and forethought, and even pre-rehearsals. I don't go in the studio until I've sat down with the artist and we go through songs and we see it. So 9 times out of 10 we'll weed that out in the pre-production.
It's already happened.
Right. But that's important. That's the matching up of not only the material but also the key, making sure it's the right key, making sure it's the arrangement. You're not putting too much production on a song that doesn't need it, and vice versa. So
it's funny that we have guests on sometimes who are great at something but aren't used to being orators. So we have to coach them, like, when you get on this microphone, understand that the listener is going to hear you, and that there's a difference between, approaching the microphone this way, and when you get animated and talk with your hands and move your head to the side, all that stuff. But you also have, when you're recording a vocalist who's interpreting your song, you have not only the sonic sweet spot, you have the emotional sweet spot, and then within their range as a vocalist, there's a sweet spot. And your job as a producer that people tend to overlook completely is to match up every sweet spot that an artist brings, and in every component that they're delivering their performance in.
Yeah, all that is a very good observation. And then there's also I guess you would call it the psychological dynamic between the producer and the vocalist, to where they may feel that they did a good job. They use this word a lot. Feel. That felt good. Or that didn't feel that good. And I always say to them, I don't know how you felt, but that sounded great, or the opposite. You might have felt good, but that didn't sound the public can't really tell how you're feeling because they ain't seen you. They're listening to just the sonics and the emotion of it. So I know it sounded great. So if you don't feel good, I'm sorry to hear that, but that's a keeper. Right.
So when you're producing and you want to get a different emotion, though, maybe, do you give them a feeling like, I want you to think about, and I don't know what those words are. What are those words?
It depends on the artist. There's some that
respond to that,
and some that you don't have to do that. They just naturally know what to do. But the ones that you want to give another option to, it might even be something that I'll do. I might turn the lights off or dim the lights, or I might say, sit down on this one so it sounds a little more relaxed. And then, think about, I did something with Evelyn King, a song that we co-wrote with Tony Haynes called Open Book. It was really about her life. Even though she co-wrote it, I wanted to really remind her that this is about things that you went through. This is about your life. So sing it like you're talking about the ups and downs that you went through. And she literally cried, on the song. And she did it at the listening party. She cried again.
Wow.
And it was so beautiful. But yeah, emotion is, I'll pick emotion over perfect pitch every time.
Yeah. Well, you know, Evelyn Champagne King is a veteran. I mean, she's been at it for many, many years. And for her to make a connection with her own song because you as a producer were able to go in and say, okay, let's approach it like this. That is another overlooked production thing. I mean, when you said, sometimes I go in and turn off the lights, I thought about Donna Summer and Giorgio Moroder.
Oh, no.
I recorded Love to Love You, Baby.
Yeah.
I wonder.
We wonder about that. But,
I thought about Jim Morrison and the stuff that they did with him when he got,
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do, anything you want in the studio. And I always say to people, all we need is you to hit it once.
Yeah.
Yep.
Sometimes performers don't understand that because they'll say, well, this is just too high. I mean, I say, if you hit that once, I got it. Now, what you do on stage, I'm sorry, you're going to have to hit that 20 times.
We're going to give you something to live up to for the next 40 years of your life.
Yeah, but that's not my problem.
Yeah, you have a problem that is today.
Yes.
The best performance right now out of this artist today. And there are a lot of producers out there who have, I mean, for every producer, there's a different method. Yeah. And every artist, a different thing you have to employ.
Yeah, even the word producer is different to different people.
Well, we just had that conversation, yesterday?
Yep.
Yeah.
Talking about
Really?
the role of a showrunner and a producer and how those can mean a person who delegates, a person who micromanages, so many different things in between.
And how you interface with the artist is going to be, I mean, how many projects have you done where, you were chosen for that project because of your relationship to that artist?
Yeah, these days especially, it's 9 times out of... Well, people have asked me, why have you been able to sustain yourself that long in the industry and it seems like you're not even slowing down? I said, it's not necessarily because I've made my music better or I'm the best guy out there. Or I think everybody's, feels they're good or have talent. It's because of the relationship with the artist, and then those people keep coming back, and then word of mouth too. So that's very important, I think, as a producer, is treating people right. This is really their lives going on to, back in the day it was vinyl, but onto recording. So
yeah, you're committing their life to posterity.
Yeah. So it's important that you show them that you care about that and
respect the legacy of it all.
Yeah, and not so much impose my thing on them. My favorite producers are those that can do, I think I might have brought this up before, but like a Quincy Jones where, he can produce Michael Jackson and do Michael like Michael.
Yep.
And then go do Frank Sinatra, and it won't sound nothing like the Michael Jackson album he just did.
Yeah.
Because he's into the artist.
Yep. And he's bringing the best out of the artist. I mean, with you or with Quincy or when an artist comes back, maybe in the back of their mind they're thinking, that doggone Preston, man, he's going to make me have to hit that note for the next 40 years now. But that day that I hit that note was the best creative day that I had, and I want to recapture that magic and put that in a bottle.
I've been fortunate to hear stories of, like you're talking to me now, about my experiences. I've had friends like Holland Dozier and Holland and Quincy and whoever, and we'll just sit around and talk about things that they went through. Talking to Lamont Dozier about the Four Tops and how Levi Stubbs, the lead singer, they purposely would make him sing at the top of his range on all those songs. I Can't Help Myself and Reach Out, I'll Be There, and he would be mad at them. But then
for wearing
when
him
they
out.
went to number one, they would be. You're
not so mad when you go number one.
On the one hand, but they said that we were just trying to bring out the emotion. Of course, he had a great voice, but when he sang at a certain range, nobody sounded like that.
Right.
And it sounded like he was pleading, crying.
You heard the angst and the desperation or the...
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then now, as an older gentleman, I can imagine him going, man, I can't hit that note quite the same as I used to when the pipes were sharper. Right. We're going to do this song at E flat.
Double flat. No.
John and Pete.
Hey, everybody, if you like the Break It Down show,
I can dig it.
And of course you do.
of course you do, hit that subscribe button.
John and Pete.
It helps us out.
Hey, if you're going to like the show on Facebook or on Twitter, it helps us out if you share the show so people can learn about it. So liking it is great, sharing is even better.
Let's do some spy stuff.
Yeah, just
Let's
sneak
get
in
all
there.
our friends' phones and have them subscribe to the Break It Down Show. Do it. Subscribe. Listen to the show. If you love the show, tell 5 of your friends. Or if you hate the show, tell 5 of your friends.
Yeah. But, again, the crowd loves it because those songs, by that time, when you say 40 years, like you said,
Yeah.
just to have a song last that long and be remembered, they should be thankful.
That's magical, yeah.
I'm always curious about choices that folks like you make who create with creative people. And I'm thinking about your, and if I get the name wrong, I apologize, but the song Never Die on the CD.
All good music will never die.
Okay, yeah, right. First off, I'm always trying to figure out what instrument, even if you play it on the keys, what instrument was there? Is that a glockenspiel in there?
Yeah,
Or is that a
it's funny.
church bells?
Yeah, it's a glockenspiel, but it's it's a synthesized.
Yeah,
but
right.
the name of it is glockenspiel.
And then,
yeah.
how does that choice come to you? You're like, this is time for the glockenspiel, as opposed to maybe the little itty bitty church bells.
Yeah.
that could do a similar job.
Those glockenspiels cut. Bing. You could have 50 instruments going at once, but when you put
to
that
go
little
through.
ding,
Yeah.
more so than synth bells or even the church bells. That particular song was funny. Is there was a group called Blue Magic back in the day. They were known for their ballads.
The side
Yeah.
show. Yeah.
Yeah, they were known for their ballads, and they had glockenspiel on that almost
Uh-huh.
on every song they did. Really,
Ding, ding, ding.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That song, "Good Music Will Never Die," was actually written for them when they did up-tempo things, which they weren't known for that, but they had some really great up-tempo things on their albums, and they would always have a glockenspiel in there. So I ended up just putting that on my album because I liked the song.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's a good song. And how long ago did you write that song?
about a year ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And like I said, I was writing a bunch of tunes for Blue Magic. Project was on the business side taking a while, so I ended up just giving them one song, which ironically they just cut 2 days ago. They put the vocals on, and that's going to be their single. So, and it's more like the ballad, the sideshow kind of thing.
Okay. I am happily amazed that Blue Magic is still around.
Yeah.
Because when you think about a group like the Four Tops or the Temptations, you can imagine that group taking shape and having their, big hits and their string of good stuff, and then sticking with a generation of people and the generation after that when you hand your songs down to your kids and stuff, and the band evolving like the Temptations did, getting new singers and continuing on. But Blue Magic, to me was like their run was not quite as long, and they could easily have said, all right, fellas, we're going to call it quits.
Yeah.
And they are still around and still hanging in there.
Yeah. The great thing about a song like Sideshow, that can keep a group working for 40 years or more. And that's exactly what happened with them. I mean, those diehard fans will know the other cuts, but
Right. You go see them at a show, and you can tell who's been on the ride with the band, and that's what they're coming to see. So maybe the shows aren't as well attended as they were when Sideshow was an enormous hit, but the diehards stuck around and continue to support them from city to city.
And I'm glad that I've been able to, I guess you could say, a conduit or somebody that they can rely on, these older acts to not only write them a song, but to kind of know what their sound is, even know what their sound is. And,
Right.
And then because there are many producers that are even fans of those acts that when it comes to actually getting in the studio with them, they're like, well, record companies aren't interested in these acts. And I can name a couple of producers right now I used to work with and for that are now saying, how do you keep working with these guys? How did they come back around? Because they knew all along that I was there. Like, there's a couple of these other cats that now out of necessity are like, well, maybe I will work with these guys because they're not getting other work.
Yeah.
But it's too late because these guys know, well, you weren't there before. Mm-hmm. And I'm always there for them. And that's why this passing the torch idea is an exciting thing for me, because I've always had the respect for the older artists, and now maybe on means by doing a television show, I can pass that on to them too, and then they can pass something on to the younger artists too.
Well, what fascinates me about that relationship is that I can see when Blue Magic, who achieved veteran status yourself, but Blue Magic got a few years on you. So when they come to Preston Glass, the young man, the young producer, they have a certain experience that, and you extend that respect to them for their contributions. But as they grow and their path gets longer and they get a certain experience that their fan base goes on with them, they're communicating a good, a message that's still unique, but that has also taken on a patina, if you will. So like a song like Good Music Will Never Die, that is the song of an older artist working with a producer with whom they've had a long relationship. And it should be. And as an audience member, when Sideshow, now I'm adding a few years onto my own imagination, but if I'm with Blue Magic when Sideshow is a hit, by now I'm looking for a message that has aged with us.
Right. Not trying to, that's a good point. I guess chasing the fad or chasing the dollar bill even. Some of these established artists are like, well, I got to stay new. I got to stay fresh. I got to, whatever they're wearing, I got to wear what they're. But see, the real fans want the old thing,
right?
And the new fans don't really
And even
care.
if it's an updated old thing, it's like, well, if I'm looking at the band and let's say the way they dress or the way they present themselves, I'm not necessarily saying, hey, wear what you wear when Sideshow was a hit, but just acknowledge and respect that we are a certain age and we've earned the right to say, hey, we've updated how we present ourselves, what we wear, but it's still cold-blooded like it was in the days.
Exactly.
So that is sort of your delivery musically in the studio is, maybe not so much a callback as just a showing respect for, hey man, this is a long journey. This is a long path. Let's acknowledge it. Let's not ignore that you have this longevity in the business.
Yeah. Even as a younger person, I got introduced to Diana Ross, and Diana she heard 4 of my songs when she got re-signed to Motown back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And this time it was Gerald Busby that signed her.
Huh.
They wanted her to have that success that she had with Upside Down with Nile Rodgers and all that. So they got her back with Nile Rodgers, but she wasn't digging the cuts that Nile
was bringing
because
he didn't go on the same sort of journey of maturity.
Yeah, and
not knocking what journey his was, but it was a different journey.
Right. But I found out later it was kind of a continuance of the last hit album they had where she went in and she mixed all those things. Upside Down, I'm Coming Out. She remixed all those songs to help those songs come alive. And Nile didn't like the fact that she did it. Gerald put them back together, so they were throwing dozens of songs at her, and she didn't like. Michael Jackson threw songs at her. She didn't like any of them. And all of a sudden, this person she never heard of, Preston Glass, sent 5 songs, and out of the 5, she liked 4. She said, who is this guy?
Wow.
So she invited me to her house in Connecticut. She had just had the twins, and she was playing all these things. And she said, you know what, man? I want you to produce this album.
Wow.
I almost got to produce it, but powers that be and Nile came to the table. But Nile and I communicated and said, you know what? She really liked your song, so I'm going to lean on you heavily on this album. And what I told him was, don't let her try and be... She was infatuated with Janet Jackson at the time. But in my mind, and I even told her, you're Diana Ross.
That's right.
I said, do you know the words Diana Ross, what that means to Janet Jackson?
Right.
I said, don't chase her.
Yeah.
And she listened to what I was saying, but I don't think it really sunk down deep. And that's the conversation I had with Nile is, you're from back, Chic and all that. That's the music. So don't let her try and chase all that stuff. And the 4 songs that I wrote, I think, were the most melodic songs on the album. Everything else was Nile stuff. But the album ended up not doing much because the production was trying to chase Janet Jackson. If you look at her picture on the cover, she was wearing jeans and with holes in them. And I mean, we're talking about Diana Ross,
We're
Miss
talking
Elegant.
about Diana Ross.
That's Central Park with the that's what we're talking about. But she was trying to chase the younger thing. And I think since then now, she's like, she realized, okay, I don't have to do that.
I have my crowd, and Janet has her crowd, and some of Janet's crowd is going to come over and look at me, but they're going to look at me because I am Diana Ross.
There you go. And I noticed that a lot of because I work with a lot of these older artists, and a lot of them happen to have legendary status, a lot of them don't really look at themselves that way.
Yeah.
They look at themselves like, okay, this is my next record. I got to stay relevant. And then whereas I'm able to tell them, do you know who you are?
Yeah.
You don't have to do that, man.
That's the same though at any kind of elite level. I've been trying not to use sports analogies, but I'm going to go ahead and use one anyhow. A pitcher that comes up and makes it to the major leagues is there because his stuff works.
Right.
He gets people out. You don't got to throw someone else's slider or curveball, right?
Right.
You throw what got you there, But that's the hard. That's like where NFL guys talk about the speed of the game, and they had to get used to that. That's where it is for pitchers. Is I had to believe that
my stuff was working.
I belong here. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good point. And chasing, you used the word about trying to have someone else's stuff.
Yeah.
And I had to learn that too, in order to just kind of stay in the.
Don't
there
we
was
all?
a point. Yeah, there was a point where I was like, hip hop was coming in, rap was coming in, and especially being a black producer, record labels were like, well, he's a black guy, he should be doing hip hop, he should be doing. And I started, let me see what I can do that too, because some of it I liked, and but then I said, you know what, this ain't working, because there are those that do that at heart, and there are not many people that do what I do at heart. If I lose my heart, I ain't gonna be doing none of it. So I stayed to what I do, and it's come back around, keeps coming back around.
That is such a we get this all the time where it's such a common theme with the people that we talk to. Again, you guys all work at this elite performance level. We had on yesterday co-producer from Grey's Anatomy, and she started as an actor and then made the step over to writer, and everybody's like, don't do it, but she knew in her soul, I'm a writer. And so she tried to write a treatment for an episode of Friends. But she's not, what she didn't know then was that she's not a half-hour comedy writer.
She wrote a spec. She
Yeah.
wrote a spec for Friends and a spec for Mad About You. And when she gave them to people, they were well-constructed scripts. And this woman, by the way, is hilarious. But on the page, that was not her vehicle.
Right.
And a lot of people read them and said, you really know these characters very well, but this script isn't funny enough. And she was, hurt, insulted and stuff. But really what ended up happening was she had to realize that the people who are telling me this, maybe I'm speaking to Diana Ross about your conversation, but she had to realize the people who are telling me this do love me. And they're coming at me in a constructive way to tell me that this isn't what I should be doing. I should be doing this.
Yeah.
So when you talk about Diana Ross, though, a lot of, and I'm not here to bash record labels, but record labels have an obligation to make money. So when you have Diana Ross and you're Gerald Busby, your desire for this record is for it to do financially very well. And hey, Diana, maybe you should put on these jeans with the holes in them. Maybe to him that sounds like a good idea, because everybody's fan base at a certain point in their career begins to diminish, and it's a hard business to accept that decline. And incredible foresight for somebody to be able to say, hey, I sold 10 million albums at one point in my career.
Right.
This year I'll be lucky to sell this much less, but I'm not betraying my fans.
Yeah. I think somebody that's done well in keeping their old fans and has got a slew of new ones and reinvented itself is Charlie Wilson.
Yeah.
And I think the way he did that, first of all, he kept his physical appearance up, or he's even more.
Good for Charlie Wilson.
He's fortunate in that level because, he went through some things.
Sure.
But musically, I think he's singing those love songs that never grow old. He's not trying to be too young. He's got some grooves that are definitely the youngsters gravitate to.
Yeah.
But they're still melodic. He's still got the voice. I think he's a perfect example of somebody that bridged it just right, not too young and he's kept his old fan base. So.
And managed to gain some new fans by working with some, doing some collaborations with some younger artists to reintroduce him to a generation of listener, but without leaving behind. Because, when you say, hey, Diana Ross was here with the jeans with the holes in them, I go, oh, come on, Diana. I know what I love about you. And, let's stay with that. Right. That's my selfish desire, but I'm not going to make up the difference in album sales that her record label is going to say, come on, let's,
Yeah, and I guess in her case, it's I actually heard her say, "What do you think of Janet Jackson?"
Yeah.
And so there's nothing wrong for, I don't care how big you are, an artist that's huge, to look and admire younger things. But if you are already a legend and you're not waning, you're still relevant and people love you.
Yep.
I'd say go on and do it. I mean, again, Quincy Jones, I know he's a big fan of all music. I mean, whether it be Pavarotti or, funk music, and he'll sit there and talk about, opera and classical and jazz, and yet he ain't gonna go do an opera album.
Yeah.
If somebody, he'll admire it, but still he'll do himself. He'll do what he does. So.
Right. May dabble in other things that stretch his capability, but what he's doing is widening his own lane and allowing us to be comfortable with that lane reaching a little bit in both directions or whatever.
I had a good friend of mine tell me, somebody I've known for 30 years, he said, after I finished my last solo CD, he goes, "Preston, on your next one now, I think what you should do is just change it up. I mean, you've told me how much you like, what's the bolero music?
Yeah.
You like flamenco guitar. And
It's time for your country album, Preston.
And he's saying all this stuff. And he knows because he plays that music around his house. And I'm like, that's bad,
Yeah.
But I'm like, and so I didn't tell him I wasn't going to do it. And then I handed him my new CD and he plays. And he goes, "Preston, I thought I told you." I said, "I'd heard what you said. I ain't going to do those kind of albums. That ain't me." I mean, it's just because you admire musician of certain style and stuff doesn't mean that's you.
Right.
I know I stay in my lane.
You have, and speaking about producing on the song side, unless on the artist side, you have certain tools you have that work well. Niall has certain things that he does. I've noticed that you have a knack for using like the mnemonic, the repeating of that hook, right? So no matter what happens, I'm hooked. Like that song is still going in my head right now. Is that something that you do consciously, where you say, this song, all I need is this little piece here, and this song is going to work? And then other songs like She Blinded Me With Science, there's 15 hooks in that song. It's just a hook fest,
Yeah, I like to do songs that have as many hooks as possible. For instance, like We Don't Have to Take Our Clothes Off that I did, Jermaine Stewart, I guess, was the original artist. To me, there were two big hooks in there, of course. Maybe three. We don't have to take our clothes off. And then we had the na 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 na. Then we had the little cherry wine thing, because I noticed a lot of people would come up to me and say, "Did you write that song, Cherry Wine?" So, but now this artist in England just had a big hit with that same song. Ellie Ayer, she did it as a ballad, but she didn't even put the na-na in there. It's funny. So at my listening party, I did two separate versions. I started at one with just na 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 na, up tempo,
and it just highlighted the na na
na.
na.
Come in and do that. There was like two different songs.
Wow!
But they were both hooky. So yeah, I like a lot of hook. I also know that if you have two good ones or maybe three, that's all you need, because too much of a good thing.
Right.
And Tom Bell, the guy that gave me my start, Philly producer, he said something that stuck in my head.
Let me just tell our listeners, if you're looking it up, THOM.
Yes, exactly. Thom. When I was a kid, I used to think it was Thom Bell, but it's Tom Bell. It's not what makes a hit record is not what you put into it, but what you leave out. Now, I remember when he first said that, I was like, what does that mean? But now I know what he means. Being a creative person, we have a tendency to want, check this out. Ooh, put that in there, that in it. Ooh, they're going to love that. So as a creative person, don't give them too much in one song.
Take it easy on them.
Yeah, take it easy on them.
I have to say two things. Folks who listen to the show and hear me over and over again, it would be remiss of me not to acknowledge, because you mentioned Upside Down and I'm Coming Out, and that were produced by Niall, that featured my favorite drummer, Tony Thompson.
Tony Thompson.
I just want to say that. But getting back to your point, I grew up in Vallejo with this drummer named Dwayne, who's everyone called Happy. And it was because he was genuinely happy on the drums. So when he would play at church, it was a perfect place for him. He could get happy as he wanted to get. But he had a hard time gigging outside of the church, because people always had to say, "Happy, take it easy. You got dial it back, man. Come on." And he'd be so happy just to be playing that his fills would be outrageous.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
But it would be like we don't need that right there. Can you just hold back? And he had such a hard time holding back. It was his natural enthusiasm, and I love you, Happy, if you're listening to this, but that was an obstacle for him.
Yeah.
And a lot of people in bands that he played with would be like, no, I love playing with Happy in church, but I can't put him on this record. Get too happy. One of my favorite drum fills is right after that first break in You're the First, the Last, My Everything, where the instrumentation drops out and then it comes back with just a single snare hit. That's it.
You know who that drummer is?
Who played that?
Ed Green.
Ah.
And Ed was a Nashville, a white boy.
Uh-huh.
Probably the most sampled drum intros that Barry. I'm gonna look. Yeah, that's him. I think he was a great drummer. His time was impeccable. But one of the best things about him, and drummers take notice, his drum set sounded great. That snare
sounded great.
That's why on that break,
that was it.
On all them Barry White records or anything he played on, by the way, his snare set or his drum set sounded impeccable.
Yeah.
So you could be a great drummer, but if your equipment ain't happening, then that affects the recording. So
yeah, it sure does. It's so important to have your stuff, not just drummers, everybody. Your stuff's got to sound good.
Yep.
So drummers who pay attention to changing their heads, cutting their edges every now and again, and
guitar players with the strings, the dullness of a string, you could be playing your butt off, but if you can't hear what's going on, it affects it.
That's incredible. I'm a big U2 fan, and one of the things that Ed requires of his guitar tech is new strings every guitar
time.
Every day.
There you go.
And he is the guitar, so like he knows it. He's like, did you change it? Not on this one. Oh, well, you changed it. Yeah.
There you go.
That level of detail, though, is where he can't afford that lack of brilliance. He needs those strings to be perfect. So,
I mean, certain instruments don't require that, but even on a grand piano, making sure it's tuned if you can have it tuned every time you do a song or session, that's the way to go.
Early on in our podcast history, we were trying to get Tommy McElroy on the show. And eventually, what's up, Tommy? He did come on the show, and he's one of our most frequent listeners and commenter. But early on, we were trying to get him to come on the show. I think we were maybe one episode in.
Not very far, that's for sure.
And trying to get him. And we were in a meeting with Dwayne Wiggins from Tony.
Yeah.
And we said, Dwayne, we're trying to get...
We love you too.
Yeah, we love you too, Dwayne. We were trying to get... We said, Dwayne, we're trying to get Tommy. Would you mind if I just said, hey, Tommy... Dwayne said if you were going to do our show, we could do it at his place, because the two of them had worked together many years, but hadn't seen each other in a while. So they were overdue for a reunion, and we wanted to cause it. So that was just my excuse to poke Tommy and go, come on, man. Dwayne said we could do it at his place. Dwayne said, yeah, man, tell him whatever you want to tell him. And if you get him out of the cave and here, if he comes from the house and comes here, granted, these places, by the way,
are 5 miles apart.
5 miles apart.
Yeah,
just one part of Oakland to another. So it was just, if you get Tommy out of the house and he comes over here, I'm going to get my piano tuned.
Yeah.
And then it became our mission, like, you know what? Never mind our selfish desires. We need to get Dwayne to tune that doggone piano, because that piano was, man. Woo.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's fun.
Make your stuff sound right, instrumentalists.
That's important.
It's just like my comment about your respect for an older artist and their updated look. Now, one of the bands that I really love, always loved, well, I say the Whispers, but I always say the Whispers, the OJs. And when you see the OJs, they will always be tuxedoed and clean. And their tuxedos, maybe today's tuxedos, they're not wearing the big old ruffles they used to wear.
Right.
They're updated.
Yeah. Same with the Temps. If their outfits today are totally updated, but they're not out of style of the Temptations. They're still wearing the same, for all five of them, but it's not the ruffles. It's not the...
It's today's clean tuxedo.
Exactly.
But it's not betraying the clean tuxedo.
Right.
So update your stuff, everybody, but keep it clean and keep it with your thing.
Keep it real, I guess, is because, some didn't wear that. Some were in jeans. But, well, keep your thing going. Whatever got you there, keep it going.
Yeah, that's what everybody loves about you. So anyway, I'm glad to see you keeping it going. We're glad to hear that your listening party went well. I hope you sell a bunch of this album, and I hope that people get back to albums.
Oh, thank you. I just found that the artist thing is another way for me to connect with artists, maybe even more, with the audience, even more directly. Sometimes songwriting, you have to go through the artist or through the producer or through the record company. And I won't say any names, but there's a couple of prominent artists that encouraged me to do these solo CDs because I wasn't thinking anything about it. And what I would do is turn in my demos because, I'm still singing the demos, but it's for Al Jarreau or it's for George Benson. And then a couple of them said, man, what, you ever thought of doing your own album? And when it comes from the mouth of like a quote unquote, whoever it was, I'm like, really? Are you just
really
saying
not
that?
going to say, huh?
And people that I consider great songwriters, but then maybe they're not as known as artists, but they've written some of the most classic songs in the world. They said it too, and maybe because they went that route, they didn't feel like they were the artist. So their encouragement to me is like, wow, maybe so. And then they continue to support me by coming to the listening parties and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
You're trying to guess,
that
but
narrows the field a little bit.
You're trying to guess, but I ain't gonna put them on the spot.
Hey, you said Jerry Martini came to the listening party. I want to acknowledge that.
Yeah, Jerry and his wife came all the way from the Bay. They're actually very good friends of some friends of ours that they actually flew in on their private jet. Yeah, excuse me. In fact, when I said that on the mic, I said I'd like to thank Jerry and his wife. Came in with our good friends, Hoppy and Linda from Manteca on their private jet, and everybody started laughing like I was joking. I said, seriously, and then started laughing some more. But no, it's true.
Well, thank you for bringing them down, Hoppy and
everyday
Linda.
people. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So I'm glad to hear he's still at it as well, and it's a joy for me to see that. I wish I would have been there, man. I'm sorry that I missed it. But it's a joy for me to see that the musical community sticks together and loves each other the way that it does. And I think that's why we enjoy having musical creators on our show so much, is because, man, Pete and I are just purveyors of love. And there is no better place to find love than at the Hang here with the great Preston Glass. Man, we've had you for an hour. I'd like to thank you for inviting us in here again, letting us drop in. We wish you continuing success and continuing contribution to our ears and everybody's spirit of love. You still helping people make babies, man.
It's not my fault. Well, no, I really appreciate it, John and Pete. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, we're going to continue to come on this, sit on this couch and have you talk to us too.
Great,
man.
great. Please do. Cool.
So-
Yeah. It's funny when you said 5 miles apart, and I know there's a bunch of people right in this little area here. Some that I don't even know, but musicians I know.
Sure.
And,
I mean, this is Windsor
right down the
Hills.
street, yeah. Ray Charles used to be right up the street.
Sure.
And Ndugu? Do you know Ndugu?
Yeah. Oh, God.
Right down the street here.
I said Tony Thompson was my favorite drummer, and I meant it. But Ndugu.
There you go.
I'm trying to think of what he played on recently that I found out that I didn't realize. Oh, Dookie Stick. I didn't realize was Ndugu. And
man, a lot of the songs from that era. Another guy that's nearby here is James Gatson.
Yeah.
He's still at it too.
Wow.
But, they're all in this little community.
Little enclave of Windsor Hills was always known as the Black Beverly Hills. So if you made it in music, it makes sense to be here, and that the community, and this neighborhood just sort of breathes.
Yes, it's
an artistic quality.
Before, I guess, the musician or the artsy community was doctors and successful people of the black community.
Yeah.
But there's a mixture of folks too. I mean, there's a lot of different nationalities.
Nowadays, everything's all over the place.
Yeah, that's true.
But
this used to be, I think, primarily a Creole settlement. And
I was going to ask you about the Jazz Cafe with the Creole food.
Yeah,
the corner.
Louisiana, was it La Louisiane? And then right across Simply Wholesome. There's a whole Louisiana little theme going on, but that's not by accident because it was like a little
community
Creole
was here.
settlement. Yeah, and we're not from here. We just moved here 12 years ago. We happen to be Creole. So we fit right in, I guess.
That wasn't on purpose.
No.
That was just accidental that you would move into the musical Creole neighborhood. Okay. Sometimes a piece of earth calls to you, I suppose.
There you go. That's a good one. I might steal that for a song, by the way. But I won't steal that. You can get a...
Steal it from you all, man.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah. What'd you say? A piece? Say that again. We got it on tape.
You have to listen to the Break It Down show.
Yeah, I gotta have to hear.
You got to grab the magic when it comes out because I can't recall it.
Well, that's a senior moment. Yeah, that was 5 seconds ago. I don't remember. Okay, maybe it wasn't strong enough a hook. Okay, all right.
It wasn't strong enough a hook. Okay, well,
Okay.
firmly back in my place. This is once again, I thank you, Preston. Man, it's been such an enriching experience getting to know you and Gina. Aside from all of the musical stuff that you've given us that we love about you, man, I just enjoy following you and Gina both on Facebook because one of these days I would like to, and of course I say this knowing that I'm trying to do it now, but just enjoy my life the way you enjoy yours, man.
Well,
Musically, creatively, you're surrounded by love and grandchildren, and every time you post something on Facebook, it just seems like everything that you both exude just love and spreading happiness, and that we really thank you for.
appreciate that, and thank you so much.
All right, Preston Glass, everybody.